Here is the Storm Prediction Center's outlook for today, Tuesday. It does include a swath of the lowest probability of severe weather that runs roughly from St. Louis back into Oklahoma. It does include the major cities of St. Louis, in mid-state Missouri, Jefferson City, Columbia, those areas. Kansas City is included in this. Wichita, Oklahoma City, and Tulsa are also some of the major players. Springfield right on the edge there too. Springfield, Missouri could get in on some of this later on. So it's the lowest. This is the marginal risk for severe thunderstorms. And as you'll see on this next graph, the main threat is probably going to be hail, and that threat is actually probably down in the more southern part of that outlook area for today. Now, on day one outlooks, which is what today is, they will update this frequently during the day, and I often tell you that this is recorded in the morning, and be sure to check the SPC website for additional information on this. And I would probably post it quickly on YouTube or Facebook if that were to change significantly today. I did want to point out there's a small tornado risk there. It's kind of interesting, just outside of St. Louis for later on. And I think that the reason for that is there's a couple of thunderstorms here on the HRRR simulated radar for 5 o'clock later today. A couple of these could be maybe supercell in nature, so it's probably where that little percentage is coming from. And that's all I have to say about that. I don't think it's a major concern. This isn't overall a great setup for tornadoes, but it is there. Now, if we move ahead to Wednesday, now of the days coming up, there are 2 days. Wednesday, well, actually 3. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are probably the higher probability days, especially Friday. We'll get into that in a minute. But on Wednesday here, we do have a level 1 stretching from the Ohio River Valley all the way down to Texas, and then a level 2, which is the slight risk area from extreme southern Missouri down through Oklahoma, Arkansas, down to around the Dallas area. So this is a little more significant. Also, with today's, there really wasn't a significant tornado threat. Now, tomorrow, the SPC is painting a 2% risk from southern Missouri down through Arkansas and into the Dallas area. So it does rank, and that's the lowest. So what that means, by the way, is a 2% chance of a tornado within a 25-mile radius circle of wherever you are. So worth mentioning. Also, it is backed up by the learning model. Colorado State University does show a 2% area, roughly where that is, and maybe a little patchy up around the Cincinnati area, right along the Ohio River Valley. But the hail and wind threats are not really hatched that significantly, according to this particular look at things. Now, the 500 millibar flow noon tomorrow does show a short wave right here. And it does show a wind maximum here, and there's some divergence of the winds at this level. So in other words, they're spreading out a little bit. So this is overall a pretty good setup, and I think that the outlook is pretty well placed. If we take a look at the HRRR for tomorrow at 5 p.m., it does show some scattered thunderstorms through here. And again, remember, this is the higher risk area. Will some of these be supercells? It's probable. And again, take it with a grain of salt. Exact radar simulations like this for a day or more out. But it just kind of gives you a general idea. And the reasoning behind that outlook is mostly because this is where the instability will be in the better shear profile. So we'll keep an eye on that for Wednesday. For Thursday, the whole thing backs up to the high plains. And what looks to be a dry line kind of setup. So the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, western Oklahoma is under a slight risk or 2 out of 5 category for Thursday. It's just basically waiting on the upper level winds to come back with a second wave that's really going to set up Friday, by the way. And we'll take a look at, again, CSU's outlook, and they have a little 5% dot right there on the tornadoes right around Lubbock. And the hail threat's pretty high out in the high plains on Thursday as well. If we take a look at what's happening at 500 millibars on that day, and by the way, all these have been using the GEFS ensemble. We have a pretty potent wave moving in here with, again, stronger winds in general. Remember, this was the first one for Wednesday. It's moving through the Ohio Valley. This one looks a little more spicy, and the upper level winds are increasing by noon Thursday out over this risk area here. So that's something to keep in mind. No simulated radar that far out. But now on Friday, this is probably the more significant graphic of the entire thing, because the Storm Prediction Center has up to 30% the chance of severe weather on Friday from Kansas City straight down through Tulsa into Oklahoma City and on down to the Red River there between Texas and Oklahoma. So this many days out, this would be day 4 for their forecasting efforts. A 30% risk area is actually pretty significant. And of course, most of my viewers are in the Ozarks, so we're included in that. Springfield's in the 15, almost 30% risk. This takes the form almost assuredly of a squall line that will eventually develop out here and then roll into the area late on Friday. And if we want to take a look at the Storm Prediction Center's outlook, that's right here. Again, that 30% is the red, and this is where the severe weather probabilities are being laid down for Friday. And as usual, they usually go, the CSU learning model goes a little further north, but not by much. So these are in pretty good agreement. If you want to look at the 500 millibar flow for noon on Friday, this is a pretty potent weather system. There's a lot going for this. The wind shear is very favorable. The low-level winds are kicking in, which is going to up the tornado risk a little bit. And the moisture has already been established. So the last short wave that moved through on Wednesday and Thursday is not going to scour out necessarily all the moisture and instability that would normally build. So that puts this whole zone in kind of under risk. So the two things we'll look at beyond this are the supercell composite. This is basically for the next 7 days, 3rd through the 9th. So as you might expect, it kind of includes the Wednesday outlook in there and doesn't get too excited about the Thursday or the Friday portion of that yet. So I find that interesting. That may be updated with the 12Z run today of this. And then looking even out into the distance more, we have March 10th through the 16th. It definitely sags into east, southeast Texas, Louisiana at the epicenter of that, and up into the Tennessee River Valley again for the middle of the month, I should say.